Welcome everyone to the Tabletop Chat podcast where we talk about anything and everything about the tabletop. I am Aruka and we're having a very exciting interview with the creator of Fatal Faction, so let's get into this. Welcome, friend, to the interview. Thank you for joining me today. I would love to hear more about your game. First, introduce yourself. Who are you?
Sure. I am Brandon, and I work on a couple of games that makes up the Fatal Factions universe. Today I'm hoping to talk about the Guild Wars part of the card game.
That's really cool. I've been wondering that for a while because I've seen you kind of post up and mention that it's more than one game. So I'm like, is it just the Guild Wars set, or is there like multiple versions of it that kind of combine as one?
There are different games. The one that I focus on the most and is the most finalized right now is Guild Wars, which is the strategic expandable card game that plays pretty similar to, I would say, Hearthstone or Magic. And then I have a couple other ones, like a roguelite solo one. One is more of an action-oriented guessing game, and then there is another one that is closer to 4X, I would say, maybe a couple steps away from StarCraft and some other games that are in that genre.
That's really
so either way, they're all sort of role-playing based. So yeah, that's the focus of why it's a whole universe of games. So.
Oh, that's cool. So I like that a lot. But there's no way to play them together at the same time, or is it kind of like okay? So each one's different, but there's no way you could like mix and match and play the same set of cards for each other.
Nope, you cannot. Yeah, I will say that Guild Wars by itself does have 5 different modes, and they can be pretty different in how they play. So you can use the same cards to do like 1 versus 1, 2 versus 2, but there is also like a tabletop, sort of close to like a D&D campaign or story mode that has unique cards that act as relics. And then there's another mode that's actually closer to a tower defense game where you can either play solo or with friends and go up against another deck that sort of plays itself as long as you maintain it. So.
Okay. Yeah, so in a sense, there's a solo mode, right? Like a how they call it, a solitaire mode, where you play against yourself and kind of like test the deck ideas and stuff.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And that same mode can be played with up to 3 other players as well, where you all can help each other's fields to defeat the monsters going up against you. So, yeah, that one's pretty flexible mode. And I like that you can use your PvP cards to beat that mode as well.
Oh, that's really, really cool. I like that. I like a game that has like more than one option, you know, because a lot of card games that came out recently, they just got like the one mode, which is like you face each other off in a duel and be like, haha, see who wins, right? But it's nice to have more than one way to play a game. I mean, Magic's got like who knows how many versions of it, right? Okay, so you got you kind of got like the solitaire mode, right? And then what was the other one again?
So there's 1 versus 1, 2 versus 2. There's a sort of a mix on. And one thing about 2 versus 2, so you can actually the cards are worded so that you can help each other out. For example, if you have a card that says every unit on this row restores like 1 life at the end phase or something like that, you can put that down, and then you and your friend's battlefield, since you all share that same row, you'll all get the benefits of it. So you can really start to combo with each other's healings and trigger little bits of damage from across the field and volleys, things like that. So it's all the words are definitely created so that everything can be worked in 1 versus 1 or 2 versus 2. So.
I like that a lot because honestly, that's like a key feature to, I think, games now, because it's like have the wording involved if you're going to have multiple modes, and then that wording has to fit in each one. You know what I mean? It's not like how back in the day with not like back in the day with like Magic, Pokemon, and Yu-Gi-Oh, where they just made other modes, and you're like, okay, does this affect the other players or just this one that I'm targeting?
Yep.
So that's really cool. And I also like the idea of like a D&D RPG mode. That's actually a really nice concept to have within a card game. So like I'm assuming that you're going to have like the cards, and then there's special cards for that set, right? And you're going to kind of have like a D&D manual of sorts to kind of play it, and you could kind of just role play with the cards, or like a created character. Like how would you do that?
That's exactly it. Because in this game you are taking an army of different guild members, ninjas, mages, samurai, blood knights, a whole bunch of different guilds are out in the world. And you could try to befriend those guilds and try to get more units on your squad so you have more options as you play. Because you really start with 10 cards and you want to gather all the cards you want, right? And every guild has a bunch of legendary units as well. So if you do happen to befriend them, or if you have a good enough disposition with that guild, you might be able to gain some legendary cards that you want. Whoever's playing the DM really gets to hide all those legendary spells and units and altars and things like that anywhere in the world that they really want. I do provide like a base map and sort of like a sheet that you can utilize to track stats and the cards that are listed under each player, who they found, who they haven't found yet. People can really build their story the way that they want and hide the people the place that they want. And if they even want to use their own maps to move things around too, they can do that. But there is a default map and a sheet that they can use to really track those things.
Oh, that's cool. So, because with the whole theme of which we'll get here into in a minute about the decks, since we kind of got, but so the whole theme is to recruit like new members into your guild, right? Guild members into your little army, and then you kind of go
Mhm.
off and play these like skirmishing campaigns. I like that. That's really cool.
Yeah, and it does utilize some of the. There are chances that you could maybe fight one of your friends in a one versus one mode really quick with like maybe 10 life instead of 20, to see if you would get a legendary card, or if they would get a legendary card. I've had some of my players do that. I really want this card. No, I do. Okay, well then let's fight over it. And they also do use that other solitary mode, which I call monster mode, pretty often, because a part of the story is that these gates full of monsters burst open in random places, and you have to find the source of it and try to close out these gates at the same time.
All right, so cool. Okay, so let's go into that. Is that like part of the lore of the game, right? Like what makes
Yeah.
the Okay, so let's get into that. What is the lore of the game?
All right. So the lore of the game is that you are a conjurer. You've been blessed with this sort of bright white shining crystal that hovers over your shoulders at all times. And sometimes throughout the story or in the game, it does sort of give you away. So some people know that, oh, you're a conjurer. And the idea is that as you befriend people or learn certain spells or have certain equipment items, you don't have to bring them with you at all times. You can use this conjuration crystal that acts as a medium of summoning these people or these things to areas in front of you so that you can use them in battle. The resource crystal does take time to wind up, so sort of like mana in Magic or resources in other games, you're gathering your resources slowly as your crystal starts spinning up to summon these things in front of you. So there is an actual reason why you have these units and equipments coming in front of you instead of just magically pulling, cards out of nowhere. So.
Right.
They do. The lore behind that is that if someone does sign themselves to the crystal, they're pretty much signing up to be called whenever you want to call them to the field. But at the same time, if they do happen to die during this call, they just go back to where they were before they were summoned, and you'd have to use resources to summon them again. So that's why there's multiple cards of the same spells or the same people. So
That's cool. I like how you put the logic behind that. Okay, I like that. Yeah.
Thank you.
That's really cool about the crystals and stuff. And then basically it's kind of like signing up for like a guild master, but like the conjurer is kind
Exactly.
of like the head of that specific faction. Now, since it is
Yes.
Guild Wars, is there more than one like do you run guilds? Like what are the card typings? Like out of curiosity, is it like elements like how Magic runs it, or is it like houses like another card game that I can't remember does? It does like
It's a bit
houses.
closer to house. Yeah, it's much closer to houses, I would say. So in this game, there are 33 different houses or guilds overall, and every single guild has a bunch of units, spells, equipments, or other cards specific to a archetype that belongs to like a RPG class that you would play in a role-playing game. For example, one guild, the Ether Flame, is nothing but mages or black mages as you would find them in Final Fantasy. But there are a bunch of other guilds. There are Blood Knights, ninjas, samurai, necromancers, monks. There's 33 different kinds of these, and some of these are not even classes you would find in RPG. There's something I just sort of made myself, like the timekeepers or the dreamcasters. Those are unique classes that have their own guild as well. So, yeah, every single group in here is a role playing class, so to speak.
Okay, that's cool. And I like that how you've actually dived into the game and actually specifically go towards like the RPG aspects where most others kind of went like the competitive side of gaming.
Hmm. Exactly. Yeah, I love as much as I do appreciate games like Magic and some other games like that. I think Bravely Default and Octopath Traveler, as well as Etrian Odyssey, a lot of those 3DS games were really the games I love the most. So I took a lot more inspiration from those than I think I did from Magic or Hearthstone.
I like that. I like that. So, okay, so you gave me a little bit of the lore and how it tied into the game. Like, is there more to the lore, or are you still developing that?
It's pretty developed as is. Some of the other games in the universe also follow that lore as well. It all takes place on a continent called Amoas. Based on the focus of the game, some of it's really small. It could all be taking place inside of one tiny little town, like the Fatal Factions Tempo, or it could be a different time in that country where, like, for example, Fatal Factions Great Divide. During that time period, they're trying to find land and establish their guild areas so that they can grow and develop 200 years before Guild Wars ever takes place. So a lot of these are different times or much smaller areas than the Guild Wars game itself.
Oh, that's really cool. So the main game itself is set in one time period, and the other times are kind of like the other time periods, and then you just kind of run and play through those time periods, or vice versa, right?
That's right. And if you would, based on how you'd complete the story mode in the Guild Wars, you might have a couple of things that you can change in the Liberation game, which is more of a tabletop game, so to speak, which has events that happen from Guild Wars. So some of it does chain, some of them don't, though. But that just comes with the games that you play.
Right. Oh, that's so cool. All right. So now that we've talked about that, do you have actually physical product of this game, or like what kind of phases are you looking into, like distributing or releasing the game?
So, in terms of the bones and the way the game is, it is practically 100% completed. It's been balanced 4 times over. A lot of stuff happened with it. But one thing that I am lacking that I'm hoping to remedy is the art part of it. There are a couple of pieces that I had made, a couple of pieces that I had someone else make who also worked on the card frames and things like that. But ultimately, there is a lot of cards in this game. There's over 2,000, and trying to find the art or the finances to get the art for the for that mass amount of cards is very difficult. So, I am hoping to at least have a base set of I think it's like the 260 of the main 4 guilds that someone might start off with, and try to get the art for that, and then really get it into the physical forms. So that is the hope right now. But I'm hoping looking through some publishing or possibly Kickstarter will get me to that point.
That's always been, I think that's everyone's consistent challenge is going to be the artwork, and then how incredibly detailed you want it and where you want those artworks aspects to be. And I heard the base set that's a pretty big base set. But I mean, if you're going to be releasing the game, would you be releasing it kind of like as like the traditional booster box method, like everybody's done? But since it's got the RPG elements, are you going to try to release it more like you could buy the decks individually, or like the factions individually to build up kind of like your collection, or do you have to collect the packs to open up the cards, or you're going to do it where it's going to be like, oh, you could get these decks and then you could get like the RPG, like the TTRPG aspects of it, or you could get the book 2 with it and then be able to play it together as like a campaign with your friends. Like how are you going to try to like sell that?
Yeah, I always like the idea of giving the entire guild over, sort of like how in an RPG game you unlock a class and then you just have to sort of build up the class's skills to fully understand the class. I would like if someone could maybe buy the whole Berserker set or the Paladin set and make that a part of the core 4 that they maybe get originally. So. And I think this allows people to fall in love with the guilds that they really like the most. I've had a lot of players that the minute they played Samurai or Necromancer seem to be some of the favorite as well. They're usually in love with that guild, and they might take a little pieces from these other guilds here and there to mix into their deck, but for the most part, they want to stick with Necromancer. So I want to give them the whole option to get that one class.
Oh, that's really, really cool. I like that. Instead of doing like most traditional games are doing these days, like the booster packs, and it's like you have to kind of hunt down like the harder cards, right?
Yeah, and I'm sure you know this yourself, being a fan of card games. But when you have the large amount of cards, 2,000 plus that I have, trying to get enough boosters to get every single card, if you want to collect every one of them, it would take thousands and thousands of dollars, and that wouldn't really be fair to someone that actually loves the game and wants to get all the pieces right up front to actually build their priest deck or build their berserker deck. So I think it's much more fair to just have packs, or another thought was maybe a mechanic pack, because each guild has 5 keywords or mechanics, as I call them. And maybe if you're interested in the stealth mechanic from ninjas, instead of the Kagama mechanic from ninjas, then you can just get that mechanic and build your deck out of that. So
Oh,
I'm
that's
going between the two. Yeah.
no, no, no. It makes complete sense. Because I know that's like the challenge because people like to rip open the packs and then pull out the cards, and then I know there's a lot of people who are these days are like, I don't want to go through the process of ripping packs just to play a game. And there's so many other games that do the same thing just to hunt down that one
Mhm.
specific card. So I know quite a few players, even myself, kind of switch over from the TCG scene to more like an ECG or something where I could get everything in one shot instead of fighting to try to do the collecting sake. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Yeah, exactly, and that's what I'm hoping to bring as well. Because I'm on the same boat. I don't want to sit there and get 1,000 packs just to find my, holographic Mew or something. I just want to, I love berserkers. I want to pull berserkers, and then you should be able to do that, I think.
Yeah, and then be able to get specifically. Now, is there any way to
Mhm.
actually get your game at the moment? Like, do you guys have like options at the moment, or is it just kind of like select few at the moment? Because I know limited supply, obviously.
Honestly, whenever someone asks them for them, I am more than happy to get them printed for them, whether they like it in a print and play fashion or the tabletop simulator files. I'm more than happy to send to anyone. If someone wants to play it right now to really figure out if they even like it, I do have it on tabletop simulator where you can play the core four, which is the silencers, the monks, the necromancers, and the psychics. I also do have it on the free version of Tabletopia, and also Tabletop Playground has the psychics and necromancers on there as well. So if any people have any of those 3 platforms, they're more than willing to play them. They can play them there. But I'm also very happy to send them out to anyone that wants to play.
Oh, that's incredibly good because I noticed that's been a popular trend, not with like Tabletopia or the Tabletop
Yeah.
Simulator, stuff like Game Crafter or NPC. That was something that was like looked down upon with a lot of indie TCGs there for a little bit. They were like, "Oh no, I don't want to
Mhm.
get something that was from that one good quality, right?" But I've noticed
Yeah.
the group of individuals in the community is starting to shift over and be more okay with like self-printing those kind of printers just to get the game and try the game out and actually play it.
Yeah, exactly. I've used Superior POD, print on demand, for anyone that has wanted like the actual cards printed out. Obviously, only a couple of them have the art. Otherwise, the art area will be replaced with the guild symbol for that class. Yeah, but anyone that's ever asked for that, they've gotten cards from there from me. So
Ooh, I've never heard of that one. What's that one called?
Superior POD.
BOD. I will look that up later because I've never heard of that before. I mean, it's just there's like all these companies, self-print companies that you just don't hear about, and then you hear them come up, and you're like, "Oh, that exists. I like that." Other
Yeah,
options.
yeah. They do shirts, and yeah, they have like shirts and cups and things like that too. So it's pretty cool. I like them.
Oh, that's really cool. I like that. That's awesome. So I guess we didn't get really into it, but like, how long does a typical game last, and like, how do you play a game? Like, like how do you play your game?
Yeah, if you're to do 1 versus 1, so you utilize something called the resources to play all of your units, your spells, and any other cards. All players have 20 life. Your victory conditions include like knocking out your opponent to 0 life, or if you happen to get them to go through their entire deck to mill them out, then you can also win that way as well. Yeah, that's pretty much the way that you play it. The resources, you start at 4 resources instead of 1 or 2, like you would in most other card games. And then every turn you gain 1 extra until you max out at 10, and you can just keep using all those resources over and over again as they refresh. And even use some carryover resources to, save some resources from one turn into the next and pull out a bigger card next turn.
Do you need like specific can you play just specifically the specific factions or the guilds, the specific guilds, or can you actually mix like the guilds together?
Yeah, you can mix any guilds together. I think that's half the fun. Putting the bards and the ninjas together, it doesn't make any sense at all. But the fact that you can do that is probably one of the most fun parts of this. And you will find that there's a lot of mechanics. For example, the ninja stealth mechanic is very offensive, but they're very weak in the defense area. So you might want something like the illusionist smear guard to help to protect your player from taking damage and acting as tanks while the other people continue with the attacks from the ninja side. So it is very much a positive thing to mix up guilds and different mechanics from different guilds.
Oh, that's cool. So there's not like any kind of restrictions where it's like, oh, you have to have specifically these cards and combinations to be able to pull this out, or like these specific guilds to be able to do this.
Yeah, the only limitations really is as long as you have a 40 card minimum deck, and then as long as you don't have more than 8 legendary cards inside your deck. But otherwise, you're pretty much free to go and
Oh,
build the way you want.
so legendary cards. What do legendary cards do, and why are they restricted to eight?
So these cards are really big hitter, game changer type of cards. Um, or sometimes they're a complete change of how your mechanic works as well. So sometimes you'll have maybe like say Seely, the Master of Bows from the Marxist Guild. She is a very strong volley type person who can shoot 4 or 5 different volleys by herself, as where most units can only do one, maybe two if you have a lot of equipments attached to them. So she definitely acts on a different tier or a caliber than the other basic units you have. Another thing is there are a lot of cards that focus on non-legendary cards to like maybe destroy or remove an attachment or something like that. So legendary cards in this game have more, I want to say the word permeability or more permanence on the field. And they're harder to destroy unless you use another card that's legendary that might destroy another card with no limitation like that. So you definitely gain a bit more longevity from legendary cards versus normal units or spells or non-legendary cards.
That's cool. And then I hear spells, I hear units. So, like, what are the type of cards in the game?
All right, so we have units, spells, reactions, which is virtually the same as like instance from some other card games. There are a couple different equipment cards. You have weapons, armors, and accessories, which are virtually the same thing. The only limitation is you can't stack like 5 weapons on one person or 5 accessories. You just have to have one of each. And then we have aura blessings, which are like enchantments or like attached magics, aura curses, which are the negative versions of them. And then there's a couple other cards that are a bit more unique to this game. One is altars, which usually have persistent effects on the battlefield, but they take up a unit slot. There's also barriers, which can help you against really aggressive decks or multiple units attacking you. You can block off at least maybe 3 or 4 units with them. And then there's also one card I'm actually very proud of called the Game Breaker, where you can change a mechanic on the fly. For example, if you have, say, the rotting flesh mechanic from the Necromancers, that mechanic stops physical damage above 3 from happening. They pretty much take up to 3 damage from physical attacks, which is a very tank based mechanic. But if you use the rotting flesh game breaker, it changes every unit that has rotting flesh into acidic blood, which gives them more offensive options to attack and then also deal extra damage if they're getting damaged themselves. They sort of give a squirt of acidic blood to whoever's attacking them. So I think that's probably one of the more proud cards that I have is the game breaker, and I think that really changes how these kind of games work.
Now, the game breaker cards, are they more than one, or there's just like one for every kind of faction?
So there is usually just one per mechanic. Riding Flesh has its own and only has the one mechanic switch that it has. And there's currently 50. There were a lot of the way that I worded a lot of the cards. It was very careful. So if they have a very specific way of playing, sometimes you can't game break them or change their mechanic on the fly because all the descriptions change, and sometimes it might mess with some of them. So there are a total of 50 game breakers in this game for the mechanics that could switch on the fly easier. Yeah, so that's some of the options that you get there.
Oh, that's cool. Now, with the game breaker ones, you could just only activate them during your turn. It's not going to be like an instant that you can activate on your opponent's side, right?
Yep, exactly.
Uh,
The cool thing is the Game Breaker is a free card. It costs 0. So all you have to do is attach it to your stasis zone that sort of acts as a protective area for that card. And it also has something called a Whiplash ability, where if you pay like maybe 3 or 4, all it destroys the Game Breaker, which reverts all of your mechanics back to its original form. But it also gives like a boost to that mechanic. Maybe Rotting Flesh, instead of blocking up to 3 damage, now it can block. It can only take up to 2 damage or 1 damage from physical attacks. So it has like a super kickback, so to speak, when you destroy that Game Breaker. So it's a way of changing the mechanic or making the mechanic much stronger by destroying it immediately. So.
oh, that's cool. I like that. And I like trying to keep the fair balance between things too in the process. I like that. It's very cool. Do you have like a specific guild that you like? And also, do you have a favorite card in your game? I know that's hard.
That's
That's
always a
a
tough
hard question.
question.
I know that's a hard question.
Yeah,
I know that, but I ask it because it is a hard question.
yeah. Geez, if I had to say I had a favorite guild, it would probably be the Wild Magicians, I think. Mainly because they have some abilities where they can change spells into units that act as like golems or elementals. And they have a couple other abilities where they can attach spells and shoot weaker versions of what the spell does continuously, or pop it off for a bigger explosion than if the spell were just cast from your hand. I really like mixing, changing how a card works on the fly like that. So I think that might be my favorite. But in terms of the card, that one's hard. I'd have to say probably Kais, the Inevitable Demise. He's part of the Equilibrium Guild, which is very focused on poisons and weakening people through those poisons. And he's always been a centralized character through a lot of stories I created previously. So I have to have a little bit of love for him.
Whoa, so is he like a good guy or a villain? When you hear poisons, it could go either way.
The Equilibrium is not very friendly. They're definitely more evil, and
Okay,
he's
okay.
probably the head of that. So yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
no,
In the
I
stories though,
had to
he's
ask.
good, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I get you. I was just like, man, is this a good guy or a bad guy? It's always like one of those unpredictable people. It's kind of like a Kaiba moment or like a Vegeta moment where it's like, it depends on my mood. I'm going to be a good guy or a bad guy.
That's exactly it. He's very much to his own devices kind of person. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so now we didn't get really into this much, but like, why did you want to create the game in the first place?
So back when I'll say it was maybe like 12, 13 years ago, I had entered this relationship where there was a bunch of kids that I had really gotten in touch with and really come to love as my own. And we sort of were like our own family in a way. And I had a bunch of friends who were also into some card games at the time. We really liked Magic the Gathering. So what I would do is I would have these tournaments where I'd buy like, like 5 to 10 booster packs, and we'd all pull out our Magic cards and like battle them to just try to get the booster packs for whoever is the winner, like first and second place prizes. And after a while, they all grew up. They're all 18 or above now at this point. And I really wanted to bring that back in some way, shape, or form. So I wanted to create this game and bring together a lot of people that were just sort of becoming a little distant, I think. And on top of that, I honestly, I wasn't a complete fan of how games like Magic the Gathering or Eternal played. I like supporting different strategies. I used to love putting together a lot of like little 1/1 creatures or grenadins or whatever, and try to mob people or put a lot of weapons on like one creature and go for it. But if you're going up against like a control deck or something that has a lot of paralysis or mass destruction, you could put all these creatures on the field for 20 resources, but then all of a sudden for 2 or 3 resources, your opponent destroys them. So I really wanted to change that's kind of strategies so the meta could actually be spread between different strategies. And also, I was wanting to get rid of the quarterly or yearly rotation of cards and have like an evergreen bunch of cards that can be played at all times and just added to instead of removed. So it was definitely friends and family inspiration, but the secondary inspiration does come from wanting to improve on the games I loved and make a better version of what I think I could do with them.
No, I get that. I think that's been one of the most common things with a lot of the other creators I've talked to is trying to get away from the static and stagnant system that was set up, and especially for Magic. Like at least all the others they had panelists, but like Magic just threw away their whole entire sets for a brand new set.
Mhm.
They kind of force you to buy more into, and so this is a wild hair question. But is there
Mhm.
any other indie TCG games that's actually caught your eyes by chance?
Oh yeah. So I just played one yesterday. I want to say it's Ars ARS X Grimoire. That one's probably my favorite. And then Jenkin Jutsu is also a top one, but I think everyone loves that game. So, but that one's definitely on the top of my list right now as well.
Jenkin Jutsu's fun. I played that one. I
Yeah.
haven't played the other one just yet. The what'd you say? Ars Grimoire?
Yeah, Ars Grimoire. Yeah, that's
Oh,
like a magic casting game where you set up your spells and shoot them at each other. So,
oh, that's dope. That's really cool. Because I haven't heard of that one. I mean, there's so many games coming out now these days
yeah.
from like independent creators, and how do you feel about that? Like, how do you feel about this ever pool of competition that I've been noticing that's been coming out from games? It's like out of the woodwork. You just look around, you're like, oh, there's 3 new games. And I'm like, why does it keep on growing? There should be a stopping point at like a break, something. So, like, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think it's actually good because a lot of these developers can sort of go off of each other and really move things around to help improve each other's craft. But I do think it is becoming a little saturated to a point where it's a little hard to stand out sometimes. Like, some people will want to cut ahead of the others and put down maybe an artwork that's AI generated or something that's, very stick figure esque in a way. And I think there's nothing against using the art like that, but I think you have to make sure that your quality is good if you're going to try and sell this to a lot of customers. And I think some people jump ahead of the game, get these smaller artworks out there and try to sell as quickly as possible to get that background. And I think you need to perfect the craft and really make sure you're doing your customers and your players a service by doing the best that you can for your game. So.
Oh, that I have to agree with, and especially with how hard the market is. There's so many big name indie TCGs that are like on their third sets,
Yeah.
right? And their third sets are just not that selling, or they're not just going the direction that they were hoping they were going to go to. And that's been a really big thing on that scene, and like this is kind of like a new question I've been asking recently. Why do you think people aren't as into the indie TCG scene like they were after COVID versus now?
Yeah, that's a good question because I think a lot of people are following them for different reasons. I think some people want to go into hoping to go into TCGs for the ease of play and being able to work with people against versus against them. And I think unfortunately the basis of a lot of these TCGs is that you have to go up against someone one on one, and sometimes there's a bit more complication than they really want. So when they compare games that we currently love to play against games like Catan or other tabletop games that are more cooperative or easier to grab onto. I think it's sometimes a bit more attractive for them. And I do think that a lot of people, and I'll say this myself, just making an Instagram account within the past 3 weeks, like 70% of the followers on there are really people that just love to gather all those holographics and resell them at a higher value. And so I think it's really sometimes it's cooperative ease of use desires for the games, and sometimes it's money. And I think that's sort of taken away from the true love that comes with these indie card games that are coming through.
Oh, I have to go, man. You just scratched a big topic right there. So that's a big thing for most people who want to join an indie TCG is they're like, what value does your game offer me? Because I only invest to resell the cards to play any card game that I'm into, right? Which
Mhm.
does that mean they're really an actual fan of the card games or just money? That's a whole nother topic. We'll
And
get into that later.
that's Yeah, for sure. But I would say as a final point to that, that is a hard conversation because I think a lot of people might be coming into all these new games like, oh, this might really get more popular, or this might really blow up. So I need to make sure I get that first edition card holographic of the very first artwork, so I know it'll be thousands later. And I think that's causing some issues with the following that comes with indie card games.
I have to agree with this one so badly. Oh my goodness. It's an unfortunate state of the TCG community and where it's at actually mentally instead of just sitting down and enjoying a game. And now it's like, how much money can I make in return for investing in this?
Yeah. I definitely want to be on that conversation when you pull it up on a podcast or something.
Oh, that'll definitely be another time when we could just sit down and talk about the state of like the TCG and stuff like that.
For sure,
Uh,
for sure.
so another curiosity question: do you have like an all-time favorite card from like a card game from like way back when? Like, there's a couple of creators who are like, oh, the original Charizard from the base Pokemon set, right? Is there just like that one card where you're like, yes, I have to collect every version of this card, no matter what, just because I like the character or the creature or the design of it?
Hmm. Though the one design, I think I will say I can't really put like a perfect example of a card that I love the most, but there is a group of cards, the Phyrexian cards from the Mirrodin Besiege set of Magic the Gathering. Almost every single, I would say, black or blue Phyrexian card on there, like, is such a perfect. Yeah, I guess Elesh Norn would, if I had to choose a single card from the Phyrexia, would be probably my favorite one, but mainly the black and blue Phyrexians for sure.
Oh, that's
I love
cool.
that set.
Oh, you got nice taste, sir. Nice taste. I'm not gonna lie. I was always like a Yu-Gi-Oh fanatic way back when, so I was the one that was collecting every version of Dark Magician Girl that they ever dropped.
All the gods, yeah.
Yes. I was like, I gotta get every version of her, even though her deck freaking concept sucks. I have to get it though. Couldn't make it any better. No, have to have Dark Magician helping her out. She just can't be on her own. Gotta suck.
Yeah.
And then I've noticed between creators, everybody's got like a different art style, like a specific art style, like, right? And I've kind of really noticed this recently because I've never really thought about it. There's people who like Magic the Gathering art style, right? Kind of like the fantasy kind of realistic feel, right? Or straight up like they'll go like, oh, I don't like anime style, and you're like, oh, gee, sorry, did I hit a wrong point there? What's your preferred style?
I've actually been a pretty big fan of the pixel art style. I think that's obvious because I use nothing but pixel art for the Fatal Factions Guild Wars game itself. And then there's another game I've been fiending. I've been wanting to play really bad in the indie game, Pixel Parties.
Pixel Parties.
Also, yeah, I've been wanting to play that so bad. It's like, oh, that's like it has everything I want in a card game. So I'm really excited to play that whenever I get the chance. So.
Okay, I'm like, you're right. This was such a dumb question to ask. I should have just looked at the artwork of the game.
Well, I think even though your game might have a certain art style, you might like other art styles too. But I down when it comes down to it, pixels are my thing. So.
Well, no, and that's such a big nostalgic thing right now, right? Is like the whole pixel animation and stuff. I've noticed a lot more games are coming out with that kind of pixel style art, and they're doing it immensely good, which is pretty cool to see that having that come back.
Yep, for sure. Yeah.
I believe that is all that we got for today, unfortunately. Thank you for joining in on this small little podcast, my friend.
Yeah, this is an awesome discussion. I'm very glad to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you for joining us. And to all the listeners out there, thank you for listening on. And we hope you all had fun and had a great day. And I can't wait to talk to you again about the secondary market and just card talk.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to it. Thank you, everyone.